Hi everybody, this is Carissa Hunt-Button with 7th Street Gifts, brick and mortar apothecary in Newport, Kentucky, established 1999. Thank you to the Lawrenceburg Public Library and the Friends of the Lawrenceburg Public Library for sponsoring your Make and Take Year the Flower kits. And thank you to you for expressing interest in checking them out and watching the YouTube video and joining us in our botanical medicine making for the year. So our year of the flower, or our flower for this month is the cone flower or the Echinacea purpurea, and we would call it the purple cone flower around here. Super common. It's a native perennial. It grows really well here, and again, it's a perennial, so that's kind of an advantage because it comes back all on its own year after year and generally spreads and gets bigger and bigger. We do want to talk about or kind of specify that when we're talking about medicine making and ingesting Echinacea and or coneflower, it's a synonym. I'll use both terms interchangeably, but they mean the same thing. That we use the native non-hybridized species. So you want the true blue purple coneflower. They've hybridized a lot for landscaping and they're beautiful, but they're like yellows and golds and deep reds and things of that nature. So those wouldn't be your medicine coneflowers. We're talking about the purple coneflower that's the native species to North America. Again, it's in the sunflower or Asteraceae family, first cousins, and a super hardy perennial. And one really special thing about Echinacea is that all parts of the plant can be used. So a lot of botanicals for medicine making, it's pretty important that you use just a specific part, like just the bud or the flower or the root or the stem, things of that nature. But with coneflower, you can literally use it from the tip to the top. So you can use the root all the way to the flower and even the seeds for that matter. So it's a really safe botanical to use for medicine making, and it's a really good beginner too because you can use it all. There's not a lot of waste. It's easy to grow, affordable, easy to identify and find, and above all, effective. So you can also use, we can use when you use above the ground, so like from the earth up, that would be the aerial parts of the plant. So that's the stems, the leaves, and the flowers. So that would be aerial botanicals. In your muslin bag and in your kit, you have the aerial part of the Echinacea or coneflower. So that means the stems, the leaves, and the flowers, and you may even see a seed or two in there. However, it's worth noting and bringing to light that you can use the root too. And when you use the root, it's a stronger, more intense, concentrated medicine. So if you grow your own or already have your own, when you harvest, you can harvest just small pieces of the root because for obvious reasons you wouldn't want to pull it all up, right? Because then it wouldn't come back next year. And make a really intense, highly concentrated Echinacea tincture or medicine form out of the root. And now, to me, I love Echinacea and coneflower, but I feel like maybe it's a little bit overused. It's one of the top 10 most popular, common, and commonly sold and purchased herbs in North America, well, in America, our country. But it's in a lot of kind of like tonic and immune booster and daily supplements. And just based on research and personal experience, I like to use it really sparingly and only when you need it for acute infection. I don't agree with using it daily as like a tonic or just a general immune booster. I think it should be saved and spared for when you really need it. Because it really stimulates white blood cells. I mean, to a high level. And it really gets your immune system stimulated, your lymphagogues, for like swollen glands. It gets your lymphs moving. This is a potent medicine. Just because it's a pretty flower and easy to grow and it's native to our land and Native Americans have used it and we see it in virtually every vitamin or supplement you see in the Walgreens vitamin aisle or GNC. It's like there's Echinacea and everything. I feel like its potency has been kind of maybe I don't know, overlooked, I guess, for lack of a better term. So what I am a proponent of is using Echinacea and coneflower as an immune booster and a white blood cell stimulator, but only when you feel the very first signs of illness or infection, or you're in the midst of a cold or a flu or an illness that you're really trying to get over or that's kind of like a hanging on. because what we want to do is shorten the duration and let your body fight it off on its own, but in a shorter time, and then have a faster and more complete recovery. And by complete recovery, we've all had those colds where you're pretty much better, you're good enough to go back to work and go out into the world, but you have that congestion, that nagging cough, or it just kind of hangs on all winter, just really low key. So if you use it sparingly and when you really need it, it can eliminate that low-key hanging on illness that happens to a lot of us when we get that first germ of the season. So I kind of pull it out as I wouldn't say a 911, but when you really need it, when you're feeling poorly, you wake up with a sore throat or stuffy ears, and you can tell that you're on the path to a cold or a flu, that's when my suggestion to introduce Echinacea internally into your body is for. So what you can use, the tincture that we're going to make, what I'm going to encourage you to use for your kit, you can use it as a gargle. So if you do have tonsillitis or real super sore throat, you can gargle it with warm salt water and add drops of your tincture to it, and it's got a numbing effect. And that's also a sign that your Echinacea medicine is potent, is when it kind of gives you a tingle or a numbing effect. So not only does it speed up your healing process and help drain your swollen glands, it also numbs and takes the edge off of that sore throat naturally. So then again, we're going to talk about making a tincture. And then when you do tincture or use a solvent for medicine making, a lot of times you can interchangeably use glycerin for other botanicals, but glycerin, in my opinion, and my herbalist teacher's opinion, is not the best solvent for Echinacea. So if you really, really are like, well, I'm going to give it to my kid, or I do not want alcohol and it's important to you, I respect that. So what you can do is make your tincture as an alcohol solvent to use it to extract the medicine and the potency of the botanical out, because really not many things do as good of a job, especially with Echinacea, which is what we're focusing on right now. And go on ahead and make your alcohol-based tincture. Then you can heat glycerin up in a saucepan, food-grade medicine glycerin, just like you would warm up a butter or a gravy or a sauce, so on a really gentle heat. And then you can add your tincture to the glycerin, and then you simmer it, a low simmer, like a boil. You've got to watch it and stir it so it doesn't burn. But if you do that, the heat and the simmering will evaporate out the alcohol and leave behind the botanical constituents in the glycerin. So that is the way to make an alcohol-free, and then when you remove the alcohol, it wouldn't be a tincture anymore, but that's how you would make an alcohol-free Echinacea extract. And we'll talk a little bit more about it on the other side when we discuss our step-by-steps for our tincturing. You can also make a really, really hot tea. And then put your tincture into the hot tea, and just the hot water will evaporate out most of the alcohol, not all, but the majority of it, and leave behind the medicine. So that's another way if you just have an opposition to alcohol, or just don't want it, or you don't like the flavor of it at all. If you don't want to go to the trouble to make an extract from your tincture and glycerin, you can just add your tinctures to super steaming hot beverages, and that will evaporate the majority of your alcohol out. Just to quickly touch on it, Echinacea and coneflower can also be used as a vulnerary or topically to heal wounds. So your tincture, if you don't internalize it all, or you have plenty to share, or you just want to use it in many different ways, if you have a really bad boo-boo or a sore, or people who are diabetic and are always struggling with troubles with like their feet and their digits and things of that nature, you can take these tincture and drop it directly onto skin, like onto toenails, onto feet, onto sores. And it's a really good topical way to heal wounds, and particularly in the alcohol, right? Because that has its own effect of antiseptic property as well. Again, just because Echinacea is so popular and it seems to be just kind of infiltrating every supplement and vitamin known to man, I just want to be a proponent of short-term use. So I don't think that it's the best idea to work your immune system so hard day in and day out, because this is a potent medicine and I feel like you can kind of overdo it. So again, our tincture would be a short-term use, maybe 2 to 3 weeks when you're in the midst of an illness and you know for a fact you're about to come down with something. And then to quickly discuss or define tincture, this is a super like general definition because this is like a 101 class, right? So introductory. But a tincture is a folk medicine that uses botanicals, so that would be any plant matter. It could be many, many different ones. And at least a 40 proof alcohol. So 40 proof would be the lowest proof you could do for tincturing to extract the plant's medicine. So you use this as a solvent. The alcohol pulls out the medicine and the botanical properties and makes it into a liquid form. And tinctures are intended to be ingested or internalized. So you take them into your body as an internalized medicine. You usually do a teaspoon to a tablespoon dose per day, oftentimes several times a day, particularly with this tincture and coneflower that we're discussing because you're taking it in the midst of an illness, right? They're generally safe for pretty much all to most. I guess you could never really say all, but most people. And children, elderly, convalescing, people who have like kind of compromised or weakened immune systems. Tinctures are a really safe and, more importantly, effective way to make just simple plant folk medicine. I'm going to scoot this out real quick. And then we're going to talk about what you're going to do with your ounce of Echinacea or purple coneflower for our flower of the year. And remember that we use the aerial parts in your bag, so that means from the ground level up. So you're going to make an Echinacea tincture, which we're going to use specifically as an immune booster. Again, only when the signs of illness come on and during short-term use, just to really give yourself a bump to like fight and burn off whatever little germ has somehow worked its way in. So in your kit, one of my staff members, Erin, helped me make these, so just to give a shout out to the people who helped put them together. You have a 1 ounce, actually probably just a little heavier, about an 1.3 ounce bag, muslin cotton organic drawstring bag of your cut and sifted Echinacea and or purple coneflower. Remember, it's got to be the purple native species coneflower. So we did this to kind of facilitate easy at-home tincture making. And even through my mask in this, I can smell the medicine and the Echinacea just dry like that. And what you're going to want to do, and I don't think I wrote this on my instructions, so we'll do it together real quick, is you want to bruise or lacerate your herb or your botanical, because you just want to kind of open up those dry stems and leaves and petals. And again, you might find a seed in there. So the alcohol and the medicine can more easily be extracted in a freer exchange. And then going on ahead and introducing it into your muslin bag ahead of time and doing your menstruum, which is while you're making your tincture, the in-between, and doing your infusion, just to keep it simple and user-friendly and to kind of eliminate the step of straining and needing a special tool and pipette and then having plant matter, because little floaters of plant matter, I'm accustomed to it. It doesn't bother everyone, but it can turn a lot of people off from trying a tincture for the first time. We went on ahead and kind of treated you guys and did a little bit of a tincture hat and included your botanicals in the bag. So this is going to be super easy for you to do. So we're going to take 1 ounce of bone-dry cut and sifted coneflower. Check. And this is a certified organic. Came from Frontier Natural Food Co-op. And of course, 7th Street Gifts. Then we're going to do 8 ounces of at least a 40 proof alcohol. I chose a vodka. I just got an inexpensive vodka at the liquor store, and it's made in Bardstown, Kentucky. Pretty cool. And this is an 80 proof. And so you can go 40 and up. And this is one of my go-tos for a medicine solvent. It's affordable. I think this costs less than $15. It's locally made, and we're not making cocktails or anything like that out of it. We're using it for literal drops of medicine, so it's perfect. One thing is if you have gluten sensitivity or you wanted to make a gluten-free medicine, you can buy Tito's vodka, and that's 100% gluten-free, which I have done for special orders before. Now, a lot of the recipe books and I don't know, I guess just suggestions is a 1-to-4 ratio, which means 1 ounce of your herb or botanical to 4 ounces of your solvent, in this case our vodka. I prefer a 1-to-8 ration or ratio. because again, this is a really potent, strong medicine, and I think that it can be overused, and then when you're taking it in the midst of illness, I think it's better to take it frequently throughout the day, like maybe even 3 to 4 to 5 times a day, or even in the middle of the night, like in your water. So I like a little bit more of a diluted dose, so you can kind of take it a lot throughout the day instead of just once or twice with a really potent dose. It also has a bit of a bitter and kind of a strong flavor, so I think the dilution kind of makes it a little bit more palatable and easier to get all of it down, even when you add it to a beverage or something. So again, you'll find variations on ratios and amounts, but the ratio that I suggest for this specific tincture with Echinacea is a 1:8. Now this is something worth mentioning as well, and I'm learning it as well in my herbalism class. I've always been a proponent of bone dry botanical. That way it eliminates any concern about fostering a mold or bacteria through a wet plant matter where you would introduce water to your base, and it could foster an undesirable mold or bacteria or virus or illness. We definitely don't want that, especially if we're going to ingest it. So if you want to, though, I've kind of changed my ways a little bit. If you grow this yourself, and this is a really good time, fall, I bet a lot of people have heavy seed heads, and they're going to kind of clear out their beds and kind of winterize their gardens and their landscaping anyway. You can use the Echinacea fresh plant, so that would mean be freshly picked where it still had a water content and was kind of wet and mushy. If you use a 90 proof alcohol, or 190, you buy the pure grain, and I saw that the liquor store has that. It's not terribly expensive, it's more than vodka, but it's still super affordable. So if you're going to use fresh plant, which means not bone dry, and you just picked it and it still has plant or water in it, and it's a fresh plant matter, then you can tincture, but it has to be at least a 90 proof. And that's where you just buy that 190 pure grain. Okay? And then just as a reminder, these tinctures that we're making and discussing are ingestible. So the intention is to take these and internalize them into your body as a folk or plant-based medicine. So we're going to add our muslin bag to our clear jar after we bruise and lacerate, right? We're just going to do that super simple. Use the world's first mortar and pestle, the index finger and the opposable thumb. And I can see just a little bit of my seed heads and plant matter kind of sifting out on the table. So that's a sign too that I've really kind of rustled things up and disrupted the law of entropy, and we're ready to medicine make. So then we're going to drop our bag in. This is an important tip too. It's tempting, and for some reason our nature is to leave this out and hanging out the jar, but it will wick. It will wick out your medicine, your botanical, and your alcohol. And it's undesirable, and it also keeps it from making a tight airproof seal. So we need to go on ahead and drop our entire bag and string in. And then we're going to use clear glass and harness the sun and the light while we make our tincture. So you can use any sort of clear glass jar you have. If you use a canning jar or a clear glass jar that has a metal cap, like a metal lid, you'll want to put a seal of wax or parchment paper on it first and then screw it on to give you that barrier from alcohol and medicine to metal. However, I like to use, and I'm usually not one to say use plastic instead, but the plastic lids for tincturing eliminate that concern and that corrosion. So this is, like, to me, the ideal tincture jar. A really nice clear jar. It's a thick tempered glass. It could get heated up, you know, it's like a Pyrex. And then just a nice super tight screw-on plastic lid. Oh, I screwed it on too tight. And then we're just going to add our solvent, which is our vodka or our alcohol. And one thing that a librarian came in just a few minutes ago and reminded me of is that you can top this off as you menstruum and tincture and make it, because the botanicals will get saturated and kind of swollen and start to absorb all that alcohol and medicine, and that's what you want. But as that happens, particularly while you're still medicine making, you can continue to top it and keep it full, like every 2 or 3 days. If you see it start to evaporate or go down because of the saturation in the botanicals, you can take your vodka or your at least 40 proof or higher and keep topping it while you medicine make. And then you want to fill this just about to the top. You can have a little bit of layer of air, but you don't want too much. So I'm filling this one to like the second screw or lid or ring. And then it's really pretty. I can see now the muslins become more transparent or translucent with the introduction to the alcohol. I can see purple little flecks of petal. You can see the stem, the root. It's just a really pretty botanical, and it kind of shows up nicely. Then you're just going to screw this on super tight. Remember, my ratio is 1 to 8. You can also do your own research and make your own ratios. That's kind of the liberating thing about folk medicine, especially plants like Echinacea that are generally safe and that we're going to use short term under acute illness. There's a little wiggle room for ratio and quantity and amount. And then just to introduce yourselves and get things rocking and rolling, that looks cool, right? You're going to give it a good shake and a turn, and just kind of let the magic start to happen. Then at home, you're going to set it in a sunny window, and you're going to shake and turn it daily. So not many things thrive on neglect, right? And I can't really think of anything truly that thrives on neglect. So the more time and energy you give this, and more shaking and more sun, even if you have like a kitchen where you have a couple windows and you take the time or the effort that in the morning you put it in this sunny window, then you shake it and kind of turn it, and in the afternoon you move it to the other sunny window as the sun, moves around your house or room. Tinctures really seem to like the attention. So I think the more attention you pay to them and the more you fool with them and are kind of mindful of their light exposure, the better they turn out. So then you're going to do this. You're going to set it in your sunny window and shake and turn daily for 3 to 4 weeks. About a month is about the true length or duration of time for medicine making. However, if you start to come down with something and this is 2 weeks in or whatever, I would not take it. I would just know that that was still a menstruum and the infusion probably wasn't as potent it would be in the next couple of weeks. But I wouldn't ignore it or think, well, it's not ready yet. I would just maybe take more of it because it would be a more diluted, less potent form of medicine. So after 3 to 4 weeks, as long as you don't come down with something in the meantime, you're going to pull the bag out, and then you can certainly reuse it. So don't throw it out, and when you pull it out, you want to use that bag in super clean hands or gloves or whatever makes you feel comfortable, and squeeze it as hard as you can, and you're going to be surprised at the amount of medicine that comes out of it. And that's going to be your really potent concentrated stuff. All those little flavonoids and magical plant botanical stimulants and immune boosters are going to be in that plant matter, and you just want to wring it out and really try to get every drip drop out. Then I would just set my bag out on the counter on a tea towel or a paper towel, let it air dry over a day or two, and then you can just kind of turn it inside out and flip those dried up botanicals out, compost them or pitch them or whatever, and just rinse your muslin bag and use it again for another tincture or tea or whatever. And now you can you can bottle it in dark glass, like when we make tinctures for the shop. After the menstruum's done in the 4-week period and it's been strained and bottled, we bottle in either amber or cobalt to extend the shelf life, mainly too to keep the sunlight out to slow down evaporation. So you can certainly store it in a dark glass and transfer, or if you wanted to make bottles to like pass out to friends and family. However, you can keep it in its original clear glass jar, and you don't have to do a transfer as long as after it's been turned into a tincture, after your 3 to 4 week period in the sunny window, you then just store it in a nice dark place. And that can be as simple as like your cupboard where you keep your flour and salt and coffees and things of that nature, but it's not in the sun, extended to the sun on a daily basis. So it's never a bad idea to transfer into dark glass, especially if you're going to gift or resell or whatever, but for just simple home use, You can easily just store this into a dark cupboard or out of the sunlight, and it will be absolutely fine. And then you will start to take it when the first signs of illness show up, and I mean just the twins. You don't have to wait until you're, really, really sick or running a fever. But we all know we have those little body signs where you can tell that you're starting to come down with something. Then I would start to take 1 teaspoon to 1 tablespoon, and I would just take my teaspoon or my tablespoon and dip it right into my jar, especially if it's a wide mouth like this. And then you can do a lot of things. I would just shoot it right down my throat, because remember, Echinacea too is a number, so it kind of gives you some relief from the itchy, scratchy soreness that usually accompanies illness. Or you can add it to a super hot beverage to evaporate the alcohol out, right? Or you can work it into other things, even like broths or soup, or whatever your meal is that night, a gravy, things of that nature. It's up to you how you're going to work it in and ingest it. I would generally just take it down the hatch and be done with it. And then you can take up to a teaspoon to a tablespoon, so you can take up to a tablespoon 2 to 3 times a day, maybe even 4 if it's your worst day of the flu, like where you can really feel that your body's pushing it out, until better. And again, we're going to use it for short-term use to shorten the duration of illness, but not daily or tonically. So that wouldn't be like a ginseng or an elderberry would be a daily tonic that you could take, like elderberry syrup, or drink elderberry tea or elderflower for that matter every day, is just like a tonic, a regulator. This is going to be only short-term use to shorten duration of illness. Okay, so look, the medicine's already happening, and this has been just a couple of minutes, and it's kind of cool. You'll watch the botanicals sort of infuse into your solvent and your base, and you can see the magic happen before your very eyes. So in conclusion, your kit has 1 ounce of food-grade certified organic cut and sifted purple cone flour, Ariel, from the ground up, and a certified organic drawstring cotton muslin bag. And then you on your own are going to provide a clear jar, ideally wide mouth with a plastic lid, and buy at least a 40 proof alcohol as your solvent for your extracting of your botanical medicine. And we're going to use a 1 to 8 ratio, so that would be 1 ounce of botanical to 8 ounces of solvent and or vodka. And you can tinker with and create your own ratios you want. We're going to set it in a sunny window and shake and turn daily for about a month. We're going to really squeeze and wring that bag out well and reuse it. And then we can either bottle it in dark glass or store in a dark place. Oh, and remember, I forgot to put that step in. As this cures, you can top off the jar with alcohol, because remember how those botanicals are going to absorb and swell up and make your alcohol level go down, and a little bit of evaporation. Even though we have our lid on tight, alcohol still evaporates even if it's at a very slow rate. So during your 3 to 4 week menstruum period, you can keep topping it off with alcohol. Then once you pull your bag and you've made your medicine and you're done, you would no longer do that, right? Because your botanical has been removed. So again, you just want to squeeze the heck out of that bag and get every drip drop of medicine out, store it, and then save it until you have a sign of illness, not to be taken daily or tonically. And then you would start with a 1 teaspoon to a 1 tablespoon dose, 2 to 3 times, I would even say 4 times a day until better. And that would be maybe about a 7 to 10 day period, 2 week period at the most. I wouldn't take Echinacea tincture or tea or Echinacea at all for longer than 3 weeks. And if you're sicker than that, or you're that sick for longer than 3 weeks, then yeah, we need to do more than take an Echinacea tincture, right? So you would just take it during the duration of your illness, the first signs, until you could tell it was completely gone. And remember too, it's to keep that hanging on illness, those underlying congested chests or those underlying coughs that come out when you start to get tired. This is to really eliminate and wipe out whatever virus or bacteria or germ you were exposed to, and just really rid yourself of it and be done. So here's to the year of the flowers, our good old purple cone flower. And remember the fact that it's the purple cone flower in the sunflower or Asteraceae family is what we would use for medicine. Native, perennial, easy to grow, common, easy to identify. You can use every part of it from the root to the seed and everything in between. And our next flower for the following month is going to be Yarrow or Yarrow, however you would want to say it. And that's also oftentimes grown here or naturalized into fields and roadsides and easy to identify. And so we'll talk next month about Yarrow and probably make a tincture with that one too. And so stay well, be happy, be nice, and I'll talk to you next time. Thanks.